All right, I'm just going to go through the last of the rules of replacement. We've done 5 of them. We've done 8 rules of inference, and we now bring it all together. We'll have 18 rules, and you can get some really long problems that way, 30, 40 lines. They get really exciting and fun. And I'm kind of joking because most of you are not wanting that. But it is interesting to see how you use this. And I can tell you that using this can help you. I one time in college, I wrote a paper in which I made an argument about the concept of God. I did some philosophy of religion, and I did a thing about the concept of God, and I had a pretty in-depth argument that had like 30 premises. And one of my friends sat down and he did this. Actually, he used a form of it beyond. This is natural deduction or propositional logic, and he used what's called predicate logic, which gets a little bit more complicated, and we aren't going to go that far. And he basically broke down the argument, and he found, hey, if you look at this, you had a 25 premise argument. You only needed 18 of those premises or 12 of those premises to prove what you wanted. The others are extraneous and, in fact, could open yourself up to criticism that's unnecessary because you can prove your point without those. And that's kind of why we do this, is it makes for an interesting thing where you realize, I've already proven my point. I don't really need to say this, this, and this. All that's doing is this extraneous. It's bogging it down. It's sort of like the old thing, and this isn't a logic thing, but for salespeople, they always say, quit selling when you've sold it. You know, there's an idea that oftentimes we try to oversell things. And so, like, for example, like I sold real estate for a very short period with my brother. My brother is a real estate agent, has a business. He actually does property management, but he has sold real estate. And he just was like, one time I was working with him and we were trying to sell something, and I was still trying to convince the person to buy it. The person was already convinced, and my brother's like, let me get the contract. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I want to keep selling. You know, no, you've sold it. Get it done. Like, you know, you can oversell something and then you lose your sale. You know, you can begin to get too far in. You know, when somebody's ready to buy, sell. Don't try to oversell something. And I think that is one of the nice things about this, is it can cause you to realize, are you actually proving what you want, but also have you oversold it? So we have 5 more rules of replacement. And the first one is transposition. So transposition, you know, you have trans for change and position. So we're going to be changing positions, and we abbreviate it. Just trans is fine. And when you have something like P horseshoe Q, it's saying you can change that to, you can switch these two to Q horseshoe P, but when you switch it, you have to negate it. So if you go from P horseshoe Q, you have to then say not Q horseshoe, not P. I'm just rewriting that because I didn't think that was neat enough. And so what happens is you can position those. But you have to negate them in the process. And the reason is if I say, you know, if you get caught speeding, then you'll get a ticket. So I'm using ones that, you know, if you get caught speeding, you get a ticket. You can't just say, if you got a ticket, then you were speeding. We've already talked about how that's called affirming the consequent, and that's a logical fallacy. Instead, what you need to do is you need to know, well, if you didn't get a ticket, so it's not true that you got a ticket, you know it's not true S via modus ponens. So you know if S horseshoe T, then you know not T, therefore not S. I'm always doing this wrong. I don't know if you guys can see me. I'm always going the wrong bar to try to clear my screen, so it just confuses me. Next one is called material implication. This is one that I think sometimes people, and we just abbreviate IMPL for implication. And material implication is basically if you have a statement like if P then Q. What that they say is logically equivalent to tilde P wedge Q. And so if P then Q, you know, we have this if P then Q means the same thing as not P or Q. If you're trying to get this out of it, it means not P or Q. Well, why does that happen? Well, if P is true, then Q is true. So we know Q could be true if P is true. But if P is not true, then Q may or may not be true. But we also know anytime P is true, Q is true. Anytime P is not true, Q may or may not be true. So those are a couple things to keep in mind. So what happens here is we have P or is we have that realization. And so let me give an example of this that maybe you can relate to. If I say to you, if I say to my kids, if you don't do this, then you're not going to get something, right? If I say, I'll say to my son a lot of times in the morning, I'll say, if you don't finish up the vegetables on your plate, then you're not going to get dessert later, or you're not going to get a snack later this evening before bed. Like a lot of times at dinner, my kid will be like, I don't want to eat the green beans. I'll be like, all right, don't eat the green beans. But tonight, in about 3 hours, when you're wanting, a snack before bed, the reason is because you were hungry, right? So you can either eat your dinner. If you eat your dinner, then you can get a snack. So you can either not eat now, or you can have a snack later, right? Is what I'm saying is if you eat your dinner, then you can get a snack, or you can not eat your dinner. You can either not eat your dinner or you can get a snack. And those basically mean the same thing. If you eat your dinner, then you get a snack. Don't eat your dinner or get a snack. Those are your choices. And so what happens is you're either negating the antecedent and then the consequent wedge consequent. And this can go both ways. If you have tilde E wedge S, that can go and become E horseshoe S just as easily. So. Next one is material equivalence. Material equivalence really isn't, and we just write that EQUIV. This is really just a way when you get these, we have all these triple bar statements, we've not really used them. And all triple bar really does is it allows us to break that out. We already know that P triple bar Q means the same thing as P horseshoe Q dot Q horseshoe P. But in order to break that out, to get those two statements, we kind of need a rule. So if you had a statement like, if you had an argument that was like A triple bar B, A, therefore B, well, we kind of need a step in order to get to that conclusion of B. So if we're trying to get to that conclusion of B, we're kind of going to need a step in there that is going to allow us to get there, which is going to be, A horseshoe B dot B horseshoe A via number 1 equivalence that we would then be allowed to simplify out A horseshoe B via line 3, simplify out everything before the conjunct. And then finally, we would get B via modus ponens on line 4. That's line 4 and that's line 5. And that would allow us to get to this conclusion here. But we need kind of a way to break that out because we don't actually have a rule like that allows us to do that. The other thing that's also the case is if you were to do truth tables, you would find that it's the case that it's either P and Q or not P and not Q. That these, because they're the same, it's either they're both going to be true or they're both not going to be true. And so another way to interpret this is P triple bar Q can be interpreted as P and Q or not P and not Q. So you can either make it two conditional statements, P horseshoe Q, Q horseshoe P, or you can say it's either they're both true or they're both not true. Right? And that's basically, those are the two ways you can translate that out. Next is what we call exportation. We simply abbreviate that, EXP, and we write that P and Q horseshoe R. And basically what this is saying is if you have a statement like if P and Q then R, then that means the same thing as P then Q then R, like that. Because essentially if you have P horseshoe Q horseshoe R like this, and this is saying if Paul is here, then if Quentin is here, then Regina is here, then it's the case that if Quentin is here, then Regina is here. It's basically saying Regina is here if Paul and Quentin are here, right? And if Paul and Quentin are here, then Regina is here, then it's also the case that if Paul is here, then Quentin is here, then Regina is here. And that means the same thing. And so it's just a way to kind of unpack that. And then last one is what we call tautology. We also all know that tautology means something that is always true. and we abbreviate, I'm sorry, exportation was abbreviated EXP. I think maybe I said that, I don't remember. Tautology, we just put TAUT. And basically what it says is if you have something like P, we know that if you put in P wedge P or P dot P, that means the same thing as P, it means the same thing as P. If you say, well, it's P or P, it's I'm here or I'm here, right? Somebody says that, I'm either here or I'm here, right? That means I'm here, right? Or if I say, well, I'm here and I'm here, I'm saying I'm here, right? And so basically all this is doing is it's saying, you know, if you say same thing twice, you know, you say a horseshoe B or a horseshoe B, don't have to do a disjunctive syllogism or anything. Since it's the same thing on both disjuncts, you can just assert it's true. Because if this one's false, this one's true, but that's the same thing, which would make this one false. So if this is true, they both have to be true because they're the same thing. And so we know either one of these is true. Now, I want to once again remind you to go to the strategies at the back of your book, the back of the section. And I would suggest, not the book, but the back of the 7.4, and it has strategies 16 through 24. I would encourage you to read through those and consider those before you begin to work. Sometimes it's helpful to realize that, you know, transposition may be useful in setting up a hypothetical syllogism, strategy number 20, or transposition may be used to set up a constructive dilemma. These are the kinds of things that, you know, kind of it helps you to think about how this process works and then begin to do some problems. If you feel like you would like to see me do some problems, please send me an email. Hopefully I will have gotten an email previously and I will have done a few more. I'll just go through some of the books, problems, and then you can kind of follow along and hopefully that will help you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. Good luck.